Hello and welcome. I'm just gonna jump into an explanation of all the books that I read since we last talked. So I've been making my way downtown, walking fast. I've been making my way through some books. I read a poetry book called Life on Mars by Tracy K. Smith, and it's a Pulitzer Prize winning collection, but it's a poetry collection that straddles the line between this is really pretty and do I understand it. Some poetry I think I need a little bit of guidance reading just to fully grasp it, and this is one of those. The goal when I read poetry is to just come out of it not feeling like an idiot, and this one had me feeling like an idiot just a little bit, so I give it 4 stars. And then I was a dum-dum, and I did a dum-dum thing. I reread Restore Me. Listen, I can't even justify it. I don't even remember why I did it. We don't even have a synopsis for book 5, and I'm already out here ready to film a theories video. But yeah, I give it 5 stars again. I really have nothing to add to my previous reviews of it other than, what to heck? I want to know what happened so bad. And then I just finished 19 Minutes by Jodi Picoult. That is the oldest book I had on my TBR. I've been meaning to read it since sophomore year of high school, so it was a long time coming. It is a book about a school shooting, and I'm glad that I read it after I read A Mother's Reckoning by Sue Klebold, because having her side of the story as a mother of a school shooter, and then reading this where you follow not only the school shooter but the parent and everyone who that shooting affected, seeing it from that lens and having the background of knowing someone who's gone through that was really interesting. My impression of this book is just that it felt a little like a Lifetime movie. It really added nothing new to the world of books about school shootings. I was expecting it to talk a lot about the characters and like why he did what he did, but actually a big portion of it was just about like the legal system aspect of the story, and I wasn't really interested in like the lawyers. So it was a good audiobook and it was written really pretty, but I don't think it's anything new. I think I'm gonna give it like 4 stars. The book I'm currently reading is called Making Faces by Amy Harmon, and it's a new adult book. It's about this young woman named Fern, and she's very much your average girl who thinks she's ugly and no one will ever love her because she's so ugly. And it's about how Fern wants to be with this guy named Ambrose. In the book, he just went off to the military, so I think this book is about how he comes back from the military with a facial disfigurement or some kind of like scars, and it's about like loving someone despite their scars or whatever. It's cute so far. The writing's alright. I don't anticipate I'll give it more than 4 stars unless it gets really good. But here's the thing. I kind of want to reread Restore Me again. I really need to go to bed. Hello, friendos. This is the second weekend I'm in Sacramento visiting my grandparents. Today was a really chill day. It's currently Saturday, the 7th. We were gonna go to the beach today and we're too lazy to drive 3 hours. So we went to a couple bookstores. When you have limited space in a suitcase, of course you need to acquire some books. As someone who likes to save a good dollar, I only got 1 book at Barnes & Noble. So I got The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. Everyone and their mother has been loving and reading and devouring. I believe this is about a girl who takes a placement test to go to a military school and she ends up getting a really great score. So this is all about her going to a military academy and training. Next I went to Half Price Books and I almost got a lot of books before I remembered that I'm gonna have to carry these in a backpack. But the first book I got, Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie My good friend Mahana recently read it and was like, ooh, it's good. Ooh, it has all that stuff we like. Ooh, the characters. So, you know how there's like a super popular book that you don't care about until one person you trust reads it and likes it? That's what happened here. I have no idea what this is about other than Jack the Ripper. This next book I got, I was just really compelled by a higher force to pick up some literary fiction and just read the modern classics of our time and delve into the poetic prose and the symbolism. And usually I don't read books that are just such heavy topics that they're hard to confront, but I think that this one's really important. So I picked up Click Clack Moo, Cows That Type. This is a picture book, but I remember reading this as a kid, but this was just $1 and I was like, I love that book. When am I ever gonna find it again? So this clip is gonna be obnoxious, but how about I film it Anyway, can I put you here? Oh, hex yeah. So I'm home in Texas while I was in the California. On my last day, we just decided to take it easy. Just take it easy, man. My grandma was telling me about how she had this neighbor who works at the library and she handles the library bookstore and she has a garage full of books that I can look through. I was like, grandmother, count me the heck in. So she calls up her little friend Dolores. Shout out to Dolores, who's definitely not watching this. So the first thing I saw when my vroom skirt pulled up was a book that I swear to God the day before when we were at Barnes & Noble, I almost bought this with my own money and then saw it there and proceeded to pee. We Were 8 Years in Power by Ta-Nehisi Coates. This refers to the Obama administration and being a black person in America, and it talks about politics. Coates powerfully examines the events of the Obama era from his intimate and revealing perspective, the point of view of a young writer who begins the journey in an unemployment office in Harlem and ends it in the Oval Office interviewing the president. Then I saw these and I knew I didn't need them, but then the voice in the back of my head was like, it's free, you hooligan. So I got these gorgeous chrome editions of the Hunger Games trilogy. I freaking adore these. I don't know if I'm gonna keep both of them or replace my series with these, but the Hunger Games is seriously one of the best trilogies of all time, and we don't even talk about it anymore, but it's just still so good. Hashtag Team PETA, Bonnie. I got one memoir, Eat, Pray, Love, and this is one woman's journey around the world, discovering herself. I don't know. I'm probably gonna listen to this on audiobook and just hear about this woman's life. But I've read her other nonfiction book called Think Creatively. No, that's that weird YouTube video. Something about being creative, and I liked it enough, so I'm gonna give this one a try and be like, ooh, I'm inspired. And the last adult book that I got is A Man Called Ove by Frederick Backman, and this is about kind of a curmudgeon-y old man. I was so proud of myself for using that word, but it literally says curmudgeon in the synopsis. Next door, he gets some new neighbors that are the opposite of curmudgeon-y. I'm getting vibes from the old man from Up, which is just a great movie, so we gonna try. I went a little bonkers in the children's section because there's a lot of children's classics that I either remember reading or I want to read, so I got several of those. Inkheart by Cornelia Funk, originally in German, and preferably I would read it in German, but life is hard. I've never read this before, but I want to. The Goose Girl by Shannon Hale, which I vaguely remember from my childhood, but I don't know if I actually read it. Catherine Called Birdie, which I read for a school assignment, and I would really love to revisit and see what I can remember about it. Holes by Louis Satcher, which I have not read, but I think I saw the movie when I was a kid. And my dad's favorite book that I don't think I have read, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. But this is just such a pretty hardback edition, and I was like, yeah, I'll take it. The last thing I got from this woman's garage is the first 6 volumes in the Nancy Drew series. This was my mom's favorite series growing up, and I've never read Nancy Drew or the Hardy Boys or anything like that. I'm still so curious. Jack is curious too. I'm still so curious about what my mom loved so much about these, so I want to give them a try. Also, side note, not one but 2 people sent me these Shatter Me bookmarks from that Fairy Loot box, I think it was. Warren to be looking pretty cute though, even though wearing a belt on top of a jacket is really a look. Oh wait, I have 2 more books. So today is Tuesday, which means books come out today. I have not bought a book on release date, not even when Restore Me came out, because I pre-ordered it. So I can't tell you the last time I went to a bookstore and picked up a book on the day it came out. Bright We Burn by Kirsten White, which is the 3rd and final book in the Conqueror saga. So this trilogy is now complete. I read the arc of this, but it was during a week or 2 when I was too lazy to do a reading vlog, so I didn't film anything. But here's my verdict on this. I'm bald. So this series is a Vlad the Impaler retelling where there's a female Vlad, and it talks about her and her younger brother Radu with war politics between their kingdom and the Ottoman Empire. The first book follows their childhood and growing up, and the rest of the series just goes into the war and how they're with/against the Ottomans and all this war political drama. I know it's not good representation for a lot of things, but if we're being honest, I'm not reading this as a history textbook, and I'm not delving into it like, ooh, I wonder what the Ottomans did in 1451. I read it for the characters, because the characters are so freaking smart. They're so different from any other characters that I've read in YA. They're so much more complex. The way that their actions and their motivations combine is just so fascinating to read about, and especially with the war drama in this book between the characters that we've now like known for 3 books. It's so well crafted. This took me like 50 pages to get into, but after that it's just like weave. This is such a good conclusion, perfect amount of bittersweet. Pick this series up and read it, even if historical fiction is not your thing. If you just like books with characters that make you want to kill a man with your bare hands. Not even that, just each of the characters are so different. I think there's something for everyone in this series, and especially because they're all out now and you can binge read them without getting confused on the history and politics. That would be Gucci. The second book I got is one that's been on my wish list for a couple years and I never had the motivation to dole out money for it, but I found it in the bargain section at Barnes & Noble. The Chemist by Stephanie Meyer, which is her sci-fi thriller. What is it? I know that this is not my genre, and I read the synopsis like, huh, that doesn't have vampires in it. But it's Stephanie Meyer. I gotta stay true to my woman. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I'm a good booktuber who didn't like Twilight. Like, come on, I loved Twilight. It's about this girl who's like on the run from something because she used to work for the US government. Did she write this and instead of a sequel to The Host? Yeah. But it's okay. Hi, friends. It's been a hot couple seconds since I last vlogged. I feel like the reason why I keep not picking up the camera is because I'm like, oh, it's boring. I just update you on what I'm doing. Does my content feel repetitive to you, or am I just being paranoid? Let me know. But I did more traveling last weekend. We went to the Houston Space Center and I cried like 12 times. It was so beautiful. I rediscovered my NetGalley and Edelweiss accounts because I really want to start building up my presence on those websites so that whenever arcs come out that I do really want, I'll already have a good reviewing background. So I'm just picking up a couple of new adult books here and there. One of them was called The Proposal by Jasmine Guillory, who is the author of The Wedding Date, which came out last year, I believe. Jasmine is a Black author who writes romances about Black main characters. I'm not kidding when I tell you there was not a single white character in this book other than like the dude bro annoying ex-boyfriend. So the main character was Black. There was a Korean side character, Latino love interest. And this book is about a woman whose boyfriend proposes to her in public at a baseball game and everyone's watching, but she doesn't want to marry him, so she has to turn him down, and it's a really awkward situation that goes viral. A guy sitting near her at the game helps her escape and he takes her away from that situation, and then they end up becoming friends. I thought this book was really sweet. I didn't mind anything about the characters or the plot or anything, but the way that this book is written was so weak. The writing of this was just so bland and weighed down by generic descriptions. It's just very basic writing, and this is an adult romance book, but I've read better YA books. Maybe this book will go under some editing before it actually comes out, and I don't have the day of when that is, so I'll annotate that somewhere on the screen. I liked the characters, wish the writing could just get revamped. I gave The Proposal 2 stars. In previous clips I talked about how I was reading Making Faces by Amy Harmon, and I finished that book. I don't really have anything new to add to my previous reviews about it other than the writing of it is so gorgeous, like better than 95% of the books I read. I just think the pacing of this book is off. There's so much slow burn, and then there's no like climactic moment of sex or like them admitting their feelings for each other. It just builds and builds and builds and builds. Then the book ends and there's an epilogue that skips to the future and you're like, what? So the pacing of it was great throughout the book, but the ending just careened off a cliff a little bit. But I did think the love story ended up being really meaningful and cute. So if you're into romances that don't have sex in them, I guess you'd like this, but your girl prefers some compensation for my time. It was alright, I just was expecting more, and I gave it 3.75 stars. Next I picked up an audiobook, Grace's Guide by Grace Helbig. I'm not a huge fan of Grace's YouTube channel, but she is someone who I think is articulate and well-spoken. Like, I'm a big fan of her podcast. I think this book falls into the same category as most YouTubers' books who give advice. It's not revolutionary, life-altering advice, but it is well-meaning, and the book was fun to listen to, so I really have nothing against it. It gives advice on dating and parties and how to be an adult. So So I give this book a solid 3 stars just because there's nothing great about it, but it's also not like horrible. The next book I read was also a book that I got early from NetGalley. It was called 500 Words or Less by Julia Del Rosario. This is a book in verse about a main character in high school. She's half Chinese and dealing with this identity crisis of her mom leaving her family and having to pick up the pieces and be strong in the wake of a breakup because she cheated on her boyfriend with someone else, and she's dealing with that emotional trauma. At the same time, it's senior year, everyone's writing their college application letters, and a bunch of people ask her to write theirs for them. I wish I could sum that all up into what this book ended up being about, but it really just felt like all those different pieces that never really came together. My biggest issue with it is it felt like it was trying to do too much, and because of the short poetry style of books in verse, it couldn't really glue it all together very well. I think the plot of this book was weighed down by so much melodrama because I was expecting it to be a really powerful book about growth in high school, but it was all just boy drama, so I gave it 3 stars. The most recent thing I picked up was a manga called Orange Future by Ishigo Takano. This is a companion novel that's set after the original Orange duology, which is one of my favorite mangas of all time, and this follows a different character 10 years in the future, flashing back to his life in high school with the characters. And I don't know how to give you a better synopsis than that because I was really confused as to what this book was trying to do. And I think a lot of that issue lies with the fact that I actually don't even remember what happens at the end of the original series. So maybe I needed to have done a reread before I went into this, but I really couldn't put my finger on why this edition was needed because it was good to see the characters again, but I was sitting there like, okay, so what? And because this series plays with time travel, it was especially difficult to comprehend whether this was happening now or in the past. So I gave this 2 stars. It's not horrible, I just couldn't understand it. I'm currently reading a book that's also from NetGalley. It is called Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. I recently read Roomies by Christina Lauren and told myself I wouldn't pick up any more of her books because I wasn't a fan of her writing. It was just too plain for me. But I read this one just because it seemed like a fun book, and I'm so glad I gave it a chance because it is so good. This book is about a girl named Hazel who is a 3rd grade teacher, and she's just eccentric to the bone, and she has deemed herself not dateable because she scares guys away just because she is so different. I know that sounds like manic pixie dream girl, but she's just quirky but in an authentic way. Think Jess from New Girl. This book is literally about Jess from New Girl. This book follows her and her friendship with Josh, who is a guy she knew from college and hadn't seen in 7 years until she realized that he is her best friend's brother. So after an unfortunate event, they have to live together and get closer to one another, and I'm only like 40% of the way through, but it is just so cute. I read The Hating Game this year and gave it a glowing review because I just loved the enemies to lovers, and I thought that the romance was very soft and slow burning, and this is identical to that in the best way ever. I've never read a book in a long time that I just clicked with the main character, and I've never read a book before about a girl who is afraid that she's unlovable because she's too weird, and that just resonates so much with me on a way I didn't realize it would. But at this point it's getting 5 stars because it's so good. Again, I don't know when this comes out, I'll annotate it somewhere, but I would almost recommend this just for the first half of it because the first half is so addicting, and I love the inner monologue and the dialogue, and I keep highlighting everything. I'll let you know when I'm finished if the whole thing deserves a glowing review, but put it on your agenda. Alrighty, time for dinner. Don't know where I am with you. Forgetting time and space with you. Oh, I wish we had a common view. You've seen my reddest blue. I don't belong in your universe, for better or for worse. I'm the same, but I'm bolder. You'll get home, but I'm on my way out now. Not the same destinations. I will stay when you get off the train. You're safe as a mountain, but know that I am dynamite. You're safe as a mountain. kind of